We cannot have a circumstance in which a meltdown in the financial sector once again puts the entire economy in peril. And that if there's one lesson that we've learned, it's that a unfettered market where people are taking huge risks and expecting taxpayers to bail them out when things go sour is simply not acceptable.
President Obama at the White House this morning with congressional leaders from both parties laying the groundwork for the next big fight.
And even if they lose, Republicans are going to go down swinging on this one. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
I'm Karen Travers.
Each weekday we're here bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics. Thank you for sitting in for Rick Klein today.
Thank you for having me.
Get us started with your top line.
Let's get right into it. Financial reform. You just heard President Obama talking after meeting with bipartisan members of Congress at the White House today. He is laying out what he hopes to accomplish on financial regulatory reform, but the Republicans are not going to give this one up without a fight. It's going to be interesting if the Republicans can mount a unified effort to bring this down. Democrats, of course, have an easy target there, saying they're just the party of no once again.
The buzzword coming out of Mitch McConnell is this idea that the bill is a bailout, that there's this backdoor bailout for banks. Democrats say that's absolutely not true, or in Chris Dodd's words, he called it poppycock today. But that will be where this battle is centered. Palin's perks. Yes, you may have heard that Sarah Palin, who just wrapped up a big Tea Party rally up in Boston, the home of the original Tea Party, in advance of Tax Day, that her requirements for her speaking engagements around the country sound a little luxurious. The idea of she gets to choose which Learjet she's on. Although I have to say, Karen, I'm not sure that this is so different from other six-figure speaking fees. These riders that people get with their speaking contracts, they're pretty standard boilerplate stuff. Yes, she likes her drinks with bended straws, but as you know, that's probably to avoid lipstick.
Right, exactly. Yeah. She made $12 million last year, largely from her book deal and from speaking fees. This really isn't that big a deal when you look at it in the context of what she made. I need a writer, though, so I can get bendy straws on the top line, I think.
What is a bigger deal probably is how much money she raised. She was outraised by Pawlenty and Romney in their PACs in the first 3 months of this year.
Space brawls. President Obama is set to head to Florida tomorrow to announce his plans for NASA, but he's already getting some pushback from a man who certainly knows his way around space, Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, who said that this plan would be devastating for the United States and put us on the long downward spiral in terms of space exploration and development. Though President Obama did tout that they have the support of Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, who's just fresh off a stint on Dancing with the Stars as well.
I know that we're no longer in the era of Apollo 13, but the country still has a huge sense of patriotism and tradition around the space program, and that's touching a political nerve for them, never mind the jobs aspect in Florida, which is, of course, politically sensitive as well. So that speech is going to get a lot of attention
Something that
tomorrow.
will be definitely brought up tomorrow.
No doubt about it. And finally, Holder on the hot seat. Yes, the much-awaited appearance by Attorney General Eric Holder up on Capitol Hill today. This is his first appearance up on the Hill since the Christmas Day bomber situation was handled and critiqued largely by the opposition. And, of course, the decision initially from Eric Holder to try Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in a civil trial in New York City. That obviously the White House put on ice, but still no definitive answer on how these terror trials are going to proceed.
Exactly, and that's what Republicans, and I think even some Democrats, are looking for them to lay out because they want to know that way forward, because this has been dragging on for months now, and there is still no definitive answer.
We are going to begin, though, since Congress is back in town, with the landscape, what they heard back at home from their constituents heading into this election year. We're joined by Chris Van Hollen. He's the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Congressman, thanks for being here. I want to start, if I could, for a moment with the news of the day in terms of financial regulatory reform. This is a big push from you guys on your side of the aisle to be a big agenda item going forward this year. I know you want to take this back home, but what about this Republican critique that there is sort of a backdoor bailout here? There's this fund to make sure these too-big-to-fail banks can be helped in some way should they get to that point again, isn't there?
Well, look, this is a defining issue. This is a question of whose side are you on? Are you going to be with the big Wall Street banks and say that the taxpayers are going to bail them out again, or are you going to stand on the side of consumer and taxpayers, which is what the president and the Democrats have done, and we hope the Republicans will join us. Look, it's laughable, David. We saw the spectacle just in the last couple of days of the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, going up to Wall Street and saying, hey, Wall Street, support our candidates. and we'll protect you from accountability. John Boehner, the Republican leader in the House, did the same thing about 6 weeks ago that was reported widely. The fact of the matter is these guys voted for a big taxpayer bailout of the banks, and now what the president and the Democrats have said is if they ever get into bad shape again because of their bad decisions, they should have to pay to get themselves out of trouble, not turn to the taxpayer and the consumer. Republicans would like to do what happened last time, apparently. Again, Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, they all voted for the taxpayer bailout, and if we ever get ourselves into a fix again like that, Democrats are saying companies have to put up the money to get themselves out of trouble, not taxpayers.
Congressman, we want to shift into some politics here. You're coming off of a 2-week recess. When your members were back in their districts, especially those frontline vulnerable Democrats, what were they hearing from their constituents about the health care bill passing? Is this looking like a positive for you guys? What were you hearing out there when they were speaking to them?
Well, now that the smoke is cleared and the discussion is not about the process of passing the bill and people are actually focusing on what is actually in the bill, they like what they see. And they are beginning to understand why the insurance companies spent so much money trying to defeat it. Because some of the things that will take effect in the next 6 months include prohibiting insurance companies from discriminating against kids based on pre-existing conditions, requiring insurance companies to allow young people to stay on their parents' insurance policies until the age of 26 if there's not somebody else providing that coverage. So these are things to limit the power of insurance companies. That's why they fought it so hard. And as people see what's in it, they're beginning to like what they see.
Congressman, you say they're beginning to see. I haven't seen evidence of that yet in polling. I know you consume polls more than most, obviously. Are you seeing evidence of that? Because John Boehner, the House minority leader, I mean, he says priority number one should be repealed. So they're clearly looking at numbers that still show you guys have not flipped this yet. You've not yet convinced the American people, even though you have this accomplishment to tout, that this was a bill they like.
Well, clearly the polls show movement in that direction. In other words, people went from being opposed to the legislation primarily because they were focused on the discussion of the process and some of the things that the Senate put in the bill that should never have been in there and that we got out. And now they're beginning to focus on what's in it. And the momentum is clearly in that direction. And I think it's stunning to hear the Republican leader saying they're going to focus on repealing these benefits that now are out there for consumers and patients. Another one we didn't mention was to help seniors close the donut hole, $250 this year and then more over time. Small businesses immediately can get tax credits now to help provide and purchase health insurance for their employees. So when the Republicans say repeal it, that's what they're talking about, taking away those benefits. And I would just end by saying that after Social Security was passed, the Republican presidential candidate back then ran on we're going to repeal Social Security. So I think it's a mistake for the Republicans to go down that road, but obviously they'll make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, also just following up on what your members were hearing back in their districts, are you getting a sense that we're getting close to a time when President Obama needs to start hitting the road for some of these key districts?
Well, I think when it comes to health care reform, it is very important that people fan out around the country and make it absolutely very clear to people what is in the health care reform. There's an enormous appetite for it, and people, as I said, as they learn what's in it, they do like what they see, but we need to get that information out there very quickly. I think the president and the vice president will be traveling the country, talking about these big issues, talking about the difference between the parties on some of these big issues. We talked about Wall Street accountability. We talked about trying to rein in the insurance industries. The same has been true when it comes to energy and big oil and gas companies. The position of the Democrats has been we need to focus and invest on clean energy and not provide big subsidies to the big oil and gas industries. So it's becoming very clear that what the Republicans want, or what they would do if they got their hands on the wheel again in Congress, would once again adopt all those policies that benefited large special interests at the expense of taxpayers and consumers. And this Wall Street accountability discussion we're hearing today is Exhibit A of the differences between the parties.
Congressman, in our final 30 seconds here, I want to touch on this upcoming special election in Hawaii. Why were you not able to clear the field and get a singular Democratic candidate like Ed Case, the guys you guys seem to be backing, if somewhat quietly? It seems like you've set up a situation that the Republicans faced in New York 23 in November, where you guys are going to split the vote here. Why did you allow that to happen?
Well, we're very focused on exposing the record of the Republican.
But I'm
Mr.
asking about the
Dejoux in there.
Democratic side of
Well,
this.
because just like any party, you have a lot of people who are interested. This was a special election. It's not a normal kind of primary where after the primary you winnow down the candidates. In a special election, you can have more than one candidate. Clearly, this raises more of a challenge, but I'm confident that at the end of the day, a Democrat's going to win this. Obviously, it complicates things, and we're going to be working with the parties as we move forward. But again, the focus will be people need to understand clearly what the Republicans' record is on some issues that are very important to them.
DCCC Chairman Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland, thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.